what is Apache Spark? Let's understand it practically with an example. Suppose there is a very big retailer called World, which is of the level of Walmart, and this retailer has its stores across the entire USA. Customers just love to shop in its stores and are very loyal as well. The CEO of this company wants to know which are the top 3 highest selling stores, which are actually these. To find this information, we have all the store sales data, which is of the size 2 terabytes. To use Spark to solve this problem, we'll have the store sales data. What we need is to create a Spark cluster and write some Spark code and run it on this cluster. It would read the data and give back to us those 3 top selling stores. I hope that gives you some idea about what Spark is and what it offers. But still, let's look at the proper definition of Spark. Spark is an open source multi-language unified computation engine designed for large-scale distributed data processing. Don't worry if this is too much to consume at once. I understand, because I'm going to break this down into several parts and explain each of them. Let's do that. One is open source, multi-language, distributed data processing, large scale, and unified. Let's look at all of these one by one. I'll keep unified for now towards the end of this video. So just be a little patient and I'll cover unified aspect as well. But for now, I'll focus on these 4 points, which are open source, multi-language, distributed data processing, and large scale. Let's start with open source. So Spark is an open source technology. It is under Apache Software Foundation. To download Spark, you need to go to its official website and just choose a particular Spark release. Choose a package type, which is appropriate, and just click on download Spark. It is that easy. Now, what do you need to run Spark? Well, you need a machine. From operating system point of view, you can use either Windows or Unix. It supports both. From Unix, you can use either Linux or Mac OS. But what is the prerequisite? You definitely need to have Java installed on your machine to use Spark. Always remember that. One small piece of info is that if you are using Spark 3.5.0 version, just make sure you are using a Java 8 version which is later than 8U371, because they have deprecated the support for the versions prior to Java 8U371. Just a small piece of info to keep in mind, and this is as of the date of creating this video. How to run Spark in cloud? Well, that's a very good point, because in today's world of cloud providers like AWS, Azure, GCP, we don't always need a physical machine to do our computation. We can always create instances in cloud. Same goes for Spark as well. You can run Spark in AWS or GCP or Azure. Let's take a look how we can do that. In AWS, you can simply create an Amazon EMR cluster which offers you Spark, and they keep updating the Spark version to match with the latest version available. In Azure, you can simply create a HD Insight cluster which offers you Spark as one of the service. Within GCP, you can create a Dataproc cluster, and it even offers you Spark performance enhancements. Databricks, it's interesting. If you're not aware of Databricks, it's a company which was started by Spark creators, and this is a provider which is completely backed by Spark. So in Databricks, you can create a compute cluster and you'll have Spark available. Now, multi-language support. Spark itself was originally written in Scala, so it supports Scala as a coding language, but it is not the only language, because you can code in Java or Python and even R. Now let's take a look at distributed data processing aspect of Spark. Within Spark, it has a concept of master, which is also called a driver, and workers. And these workers are also called executors. How it works is the master, if it has to process some data, so let's say you want to process data using Spark, what master would do, it would divide that data set among different workers and break it into chunks. And these are always logical chunks, not physical chunks. And it assigns each worker a respective chunk from that data. And when the execution starts, each worker executes on its own chunk of data and gives us the result back. Distributed data processing is a technology in itself, and I have created a dedicated separate video on this technology. So please feel free to check that out. Spark has large scalability. An idea about its scalability can be derived from the fact that within AWS, you can create a cluster, an EMR cluster with Spark installed on it, and you can keep 2000 instance cluster, each of close to 2 terabyte of memory. I mean, can you imagine almost 2 terabytes of memory with 2000 instances? I mean, that's huge. Meaning, you can horizontally scale any Spark cluster. You need 6 instances, that's okay. You want to add more, you can add more. You have more data to process, you can add more instances. Keep on adding and scale it horizontally. And keep on adding, and you can add and create a cluster of about thousands of instances. Unified engine. Spark provides us a unified engine, meaning using the same engine, you can run SQL queries, graphical computation, and even machine learning models. You don't need separate engines for each. How it helps? Well, within the same Spark application, you can process data by running SQL queries on it, then do some graphical computation on this data, and then run a predictive model on the same data within the same Spark application. Let's take a look at one such application. Within the same Spark application, we can include the imports for SQL, ML, as well as graphical computation. We can first create a data frame, then we can run some SQL aggregation on top of that data. Then from that result, we can create vertices and edges and run some Spark graphical computation, which is where we can run a PageRank algorithm on this data. Then we can use this data to create the features and even run a linear regression predictive modeling on this data. And this all happens within the same Spark application. And this is the unified engine benefit of Spark.